We had a friend a few years ago. She was a textile designer. Now she moved to New York because that's where textile design is done, I guess. And but she was interested. When we'd go over to her apartment, she'd have us making paper or making stamps out of potatoes, to stamp designs. And she always was interested in those things. But she had, at one time or another, she had brought a gourd, a dried gourd, back from Mexico, from a trip that she made to Mexico. And, I suppose she would, it was nice looking. She would, clean it up, spray it maybe with a little spray and keep that gourd going. Wow, it's looking a little shinier right now. And she'd work on that gourd and maybe a little pledge or something, like spray stuff to shine it up. And she would get that, and it was nice. You look at that shine on that baby. That's a nice looking gourd. And she had that hanging in her kitchen, with a few leaves around it, with the like little viney type of stuff and some other stuff. And it was hanging in the kitchen, like over the countertop. And she had it there for 3 years, since she made her trip. And we were over there one day, and we walked into and she kind of sounded shocked. And so we went into the kitchen there, and that gourd that she'd had hanging there in the kitchen where all the food is prepared had been hanging there for 3 years. Suddenly there was, on the wall behind it, there was like 1,000 tiny bugs that had creeped out of that gourd after 3 years. And the wall was just black, with bugs. And we were happy, we got in there and tried to get everything in a bag and get rid of that and then go in there and clean it up. But that thing had hung there for 3 years, and no doubt those bugs were infesting that, eating the inside of that dried out gourd and multiplying, I suppose. And so they end up with thousands of these little bugs. And then we had to dispose of it. But looking at it, it was beautiful. Jesus said that the Pharisees were like whitewashed tombs. They're nice looking on the outside. If you look at the Pharisees, they're doing all the right stuff. They're praying, they're fasting, they're tithing, they're doing all the right stuff. And the Pharisees seem like the best guys around, really. Anybody you would ask on the street, they'd say, well, that's a religious guy. That's a man of God there. And but Jesus said they're like whitewashed tombs. They're kind of like this. They're beautiful on the outside, but he said, but inside, it's full of dead man's bones and all kinds of corruption. If you opened a Pharisee's heart up, it was full of bugs. It was full of sin. It was full of junk. It stunk. And that's the way the Pharisees were. And he said, that's the problem. You can look good on the outside. I have this little bag of bugs. Can you see that little bag of bugs? I bought that quite a few years ago to terrify Sandy or the kids or something. And I'm sure I played a joke on the kids at some time or another, but it's dangerous playing a joke like that on Sandy because, I might pay the price. But anyway, these are ants. They these are supposed to look like little ants, actually, these bugs. And I've had them for years. I was just cleaning out a desk and I found them. So there you can see, maybe that's like the wall behind where this gourd was hanging. Or maybe like a Pharisee's heart. It's full of these bugs. Full of these bugs. And you can be talking to somebody, maybe an unsaved person, and for one thing, they might like those bugs. There's a lot of people that enjoy their sin, enjoy their kind of perverted conscience and their wicked heart and the things that they're doing. They have no interest in getting rid of these bugs. The bugs are what they like. They're like pet bugs. They got a heart full of them. It's like if she had that gourd and she decides not to throw it away, just let those bugs go because she likes to look at those bugs. Well, so some people just don't care. And then on the other hand, some folks, they see their heart is like that. You know, the in Jeremiah it says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So we're looking, you know, we look at that heart, even our own heart, and we think we don't realize all that's in there, all that's in an unsaved person's heart, and who can know it? Really, just God can know it. So in a lot of cases, you know, somebody will maybe be talking to somebody and they'll say, well, you know, I know that I'm not a perfect man or woman, and this bug right here, this is my problem. This is my problem is sometimes I drink too much, and I'm going to correct that. So I'm going to get rid of that bug, and you get rid of that bug. But their heart still looks like that. You know, then or maybe somebody says, well, you know, there's this one, you know, a sexual sin, you know, maybe pornography or something, and I know I got to fix that to get right with God. So they think I'm going to take a tweezers and get that bug out of there, and maybe they're able to adjust for that. But their heart looks like that. The problem is there's no end to this. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? When God was picking a king through Samuel, and so in Samuel 16, David's fathers, you know, he had many brothers, and they brought him in front of him. And these guys looked great. They were good looking, you know, handsome, tall. They looked like guys you'd want to hire to do something. And they were sure, you know, that one of these guys is the one that God has sent Samuel to anoint as king. And Samuel goes through them all. He says, nah, that's not it. You got another kid somewhere? And it was David. But Samuel tells him, God tells him, you're looking at the outward appearance. You're looking at how tall somebody is, or how they look, or how well they talk. And you're thinking that's how God picks. God doesn't pick that way. God looks at the heart. God looks at a person's heart. Where is your heart relative to God? You know, your heart, again, is your spirit or your conscience. That part of you that, if you're born again, is washed clean and is filled with the Holy Spirit. And is in, you know, that's where Jesus lives in you. We say Jesus, Christ in you, the hope of glory. And Jesus lives in your heart by the Holy Spirit. And that's the part of you that has to be cleaned up, that has to be, according to the Bible, created again in righteousness and true holiness. When you're born again, all things are new. And your heart, then, by God, is cleaned out. Is cleaned out, and you become a new creation. Doesn't mean you never sin, but now you're not the victim of sin. You're not just filled with that. The longer you look at that, the more, you know, if you start analyzing yourself, you say, man, I just can't get all of this stuff right. So the goal is to be born again and to have your spirit renewed. When I was saved, you know, standing in a parking lot over at the University of Minnesota, 27 years old, when I got saved, really I felt a joy and a peace and a cleanness that I had never felt. It was amazing. It was amazing because my heart was cleaned up by God and I was forgiven by God. There's a song. I'm going to see if I can do it. I do these kind of badly, right? But, you know, we'll see. But it's a song that talks about that fact of getting your heart cleaned up before God. Well, today I found myself, after searching all these years, and the man that I saw, he wasn't at all who I thought he'd be. Well, I was lost when you found me here. I was broken beyond repair. Then you came along and you sang your song over me. Feels like I'm born again. Feels like I'm living for the very first time. For the very first time in my life. Make a promise to me now. Reassure my heart somehow that the love that I feel is so much more real than anything. I've a feeling in my soul, and I pray that I'm not wrong, that the life I have now is only the beginning. Feels like I'm born again. Feels like I'm living for the very first time. For the very first time. It feels like I'm breathing. Feels like I'm moving for the very first time. For the very first time. Wasn't looking for something that was more than what I had yesterday. Then you came to me and you gave to me life and love that I've never known, that I've never felt before. Feels like I'm born again. Feels like I'm living for the very first time. For the very first time. It feels like I'm breathing. It feels like I'm moving for the very first time. I'm living for the first time in my life. Man, it feels good to have your heart washed clean. Choose Jesus.